All right, folks, let's talk about Thomas Aquinas' cosmological argument. So in our previous presentation, we learned that in his masterwork, Summa Theologiae, Aquinas develops 5 ways of proving God's existence, but we're going to focus on 2. The second way, referred to as the cosmological argument, and the 5th way, also known as the teleological argument. And for this presentation, we are going to focus upon the cosmological argument. So what I did is I broke the argument down into what we call premise-conclusion format, in which the premises represent the evidence and the conclusion kind of represents, the end of the argument or the conclusion of the argument. So here are the points. All things in the universe are caused. Nothing can be the cause of itself. There cannot be an infinite regress of causes. There must exist an uncaused first cause. The word God means the uncaused first cause, and therefore God exists. So we're good, right? Of course not. Let's break these down. Let's unpack this. So let's take a look at the first point. All things in the universe are caused. That is, according to Aquinas, everything in the universe follows the laws of cause and effect. So how does a tree come into being? Well, the wind causes a previous oak tree to shake, and an acorn falls off. And then as a result of, rainwater and, other earth processes, the acorn will germinate and then follow this process in which it matures and grows and develops eventually into an oak tree. So oak trees are not just created out of thin air. They follow this law of cause and effect, which brings them into being. And Thomas Aquinas basically makes this assumption that the entire universe functions this way, that just like the tree follows the rules of cause and effect, so too does the universe. All right, so that's the first point. So the second point is this. Nothing can be the cause of itself. That is, once again, according to the rules of cause and effect, rabbits don't just appear out of hats, out of thin air, and they certainly don't create themselves. But rather, like the oak tree, in order for a rabbit to come into being, it has to follow these strict rules of cause and effect. So again, rabbits don't create themselves. They're not created out of nothing, like out of a magician's hat. They have to follow this strict kind of natural law of cause and effect. All right, thirdly, and this one's a bit tricky, there cannot be an infinite regress of causes. All right, let's go over an example. So let's say that this slide represents the universe in the present day. Now let's say that you and I, or whoever's watching, let's say that we purchase a time machine and we go back in time. And let's say we want to see like the birth of the universe. Well, according to Thomas Aquinas, it is impossible for us to go back in time to infinity. Why? Because according to the rules of logic and the rules of cause and effect, that is simply absurd. That is, in accordance with the laws of cause and effect, again, everything in this world has a beginning. You had a beginning, I had a beginning, the oak tree had a beginning, everything has a starting point. So there's no way that we can go into a time machine and go back in time into infinity. At some point, we are going to reach a starting point. So all things in the universe are caused. Nothing can be the cause of itself. There cannot be an infinite regress of causes. And as a result, there must exist what Aquinas calls an uncaused first cause. And Aquinas interprets this uncaused first cause as God, and therefore he concludes that God exists. So what is this uncaused first cause, and how is it relevant to the other premises? So let's kind of conclude the argument with a diagram. So once again, let's assume that this is the present day universe. So Aquinas' entire argument is based upon the assumption that the universe actually exists, and that the universe follows this law of cause and effect. But the question is, how did the universe get here? Right? How did the universe come to be? Well, let's go through the different possibilities. Well, for Aquinas, and this is the first point, it could not have created itself, right? According to the laws of cause and effect, that is possible. Things don't create themselves, things don't come out of nothing. Rather, they follow the laws of cause and effect. Secondly, it could not have not been created. That is, we can't just keep going back into infinity because that's absurd. Rather, there must have been some kind of a beginning. And because the universe had a beginning and it was created, it must have been created from something else. That is, the universe could not have created itself. Something else must have caused it to come into being. Something else must have created it. And this Aquinas calls the uncaused first cause. That is, the first cause that didn't rely on anything else for it to come into being. And this uncaused first cause, Aquinas calls God. And why does he call it God? Because only God in the Western theological tradition is transcendent or beyond time and space and supreme where nothing else has caused it. So the only logical conclusion that we can come to is that the universe was created, it was created by this uncaused first cause, and the only thing that could, fulfill this definition of an uncaused first cause is God. And therefore, God exists. Now, this is a rather complicated argument. It's illogical, but it's complicated. So what do you think? Has Aquinas convinced you? What do you think of his premises? Can you see any flaws in them? And what about his overall conclusion? Does God exist? Again, are you convinced? So I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the discussion forum.